Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Today I'm speaking with Courtney Jones. Courtney is a teacher and she started a movement called Support a Teacher. You can find it at supportateach.com, and she started that July 1st of this year. And there's also a hashtag that goes with it called Clear the Lists. And I mean, from what I see, it's to help teachers get supplies and anything they might need for their classrooms. Hi Courtney, thank you for coming on. And if you want to talk a little bit about this, how you started it, about yourself.
Sure. Hi. Yeah, thank you so much for having me too. So I am a teacher in Texas, and I was gearing up for the new school year, getting ready to buy some supplies for my classroom and my kiddos. And I was searching on the web trying to find, things that would help me do that where I didn't have to spend so much out of pocket. And I came across, some similar ideas, and I thought, okay, I could do this for education and I could make it really great. And I think that I have the skills to lay the infrastructure. And at that time, I'm thinking maybe 1,000 people max. I never dreamt that it would ever get to the size that it is. But yeah, so I created it on July 1st. I created a closed Facebook group, and that's called Support a Teacher, Clear the List. And we have in that main group, we had, I think, almost 30,000 people in 3 weeks. Everybody was just like inviting everyone they knew, every teacher they knew. And at that time, I realized that this was a lot bigger than just teachers gifting to other teachers and spreading motivation and advice and little inspirational things. And so I created a live video on Facebook and a Facebook event and said, hey guys, we're going to Twitter because we have a story to tell. And this is obviously an issue that's pervasive across the country. And so we did. Hashtag Clear the List was trending the first 4 days. Then there were also like spinoffs for each state, and some of the states were trending. Clear the List Florida, Clear the List Pennsylvania, Texas. And yeah, I mean, it really blew up. So right now we're 2.5 months in, and we have over 200,000 teachers and donors involved across all social media. We have raised over $100,000. It's really hard to see exactly how much money is being spent because teachers and donors are just buying right off wish lists and not through an entity that I have. So it's hard to keep up with some metrics, but it's been unbelievably successful, and teachers are feeling empowered and uplifted, and they're getting some things for their classrooms and their students. So it's really just a win-win all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I saw this. A friend of mine, someone who I met on Twitter, like got connected through on Twitter. I mean, he was doing this, and he'd mentioned it. I saw him doing it, and then I started looking into it, and it. Okay, I mean, it's great. Like, people are helping out, and I think it's awesome. We teachers need a lot more help than I think we're giving them. And I remember, okay, I'm pushing 50. I remember when I was in school, like even back then in the 70s, the teachers would, but back then it was a little smaller things like, okay, so you can't get gold stickers or little stickers that like with way to go or good job or whatever. You can't get
Right.
those, so you have to go buy those specially. It was things like that. It wasn't but they were still spending money out of pocket. So I mean, I know this has been going on for a while, but I started looking at these lists, and I mean, there's teachers with pencil sharpeners on there, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, have we gotten to a point where we can't put pencil sharpeners in classrooms?
Right, exactly. When I got into my new classroom last year, there wasn't a pencil sharpener. There was a mechanical one, but as anyone knows, that is really slow and really loud.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I completely agree with you. I've told everyone, all the press and all my followers that yes, this is a great uplifting, pay it forward initiative, but it comes out of frustration that, this move, I've said it everywhere that I can, this movement should not exist. This shouldn't be a thing. I'm glad it is in some ways because it really is bonding the teacher community really globally. I've done some Canadian press and I know we have teachers from Mexico and the UK. So there really are teachers all across the world participating. It's just obviously localized in the US. But I mean, we've bonded together and none of us really know each other. But we're all like supporting each other and we all act like we're just like great friends now. And we know we have a good support system to fall back on.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I'm always a huge proponent of education. I've always, tried to say, like, that's the one thing, if we can sort out, get that, and so much other stuff will get straightened out.
Right.
And okay, I'm looking at this from the outside, and this might be a little bit beyond your scope, but you hear a lot centered around college, and I mean, again, don't get me wrong, I think college is great. Get an education if that's what you want, if that's what's going to benefit you, right? But they're talking, and again, it's a problem. All marginalized communities can't get in. So I just remember it's something in Australia recently, or maybe it was in New Zealand. They're like, okay, we're going to accept women into engineering with 20% less or something like that. I'm like, okay, that doesn't benefit anyone.
Yeah.
And so even here, I mean, I get the fact that you have kids coming in from schools from poor neighborhoods who don't have all the advantages that people from more affluent neighborhoods can get. But okay, that's one problem to fix. But when you get people coming into college and they're not quite prepared, and you let them come into they might love the STEM fields and they might want to go into that, and they've got an aptitude, and they're intelligent, they're talented, but they just haven't been prepared enough. So they get in, they do poorly, and they drop out. While you're fixing the things at the primary and the secondary level, instead of something like that in college, wouldn't it be better to say, okay, you've been accepted at University X, you need to do some preparatory work, go to a community college near you for the first year. If you can maintain a B average, you're guaranteed a spot the following year.
Yes. So you mean like people who just need, like, maybe didn't have like the passing grades, or I guess what would be your criteria?
Well,
I'm
no, okay, like let's say okay, so okay, I'm going to bring the Harvard thing into account because there was a lot of press on it. So
okay.
Asian students were being penalized points on their SAT scores, and African American students were given points on their SAT scores, so that there were fewer, so they can have fewer Asians coming in and more African Americans coming in, right? Now, instead of giving them that 200-point bonus and bringing them in that year where they might not do as well, why not say, okay, you're guaranteed a spot in the following year. We think you're good enough. We think you have the aptitude. We think you'd be, an asset to Harvard. Spend a year at a community college near you, take these courses, prepare yourself, and maintain a B average, and you're guaranteed a spot. I mean, and then that person's better prepared, and they know that they're going to school. Yes, it takes a year longer, but wouldn't it be better to be better prepared? It's not a perfect solution, but it's better than just letting them in and failing.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I'm not hugely up to date on what's happening in universities, just because I am centered around primary and secondary. But I will say that I do agree with you to an extent. So like, I don't understand why we would curve something for anyone. I'm a female, and I am really masculine, if you will, like in my like personality. So growing up, I wanted to play football with the boys. I wrote a petition to my district for me to be able to play. And they said it was too much of a safety concern to let a girl play. Since then, they changed that. But I'm always been the one that, don't hire me, don't let me play because I'm the girl. Like, oh, here's Courtney, the one playing with the boys. No, let me try out just like every boy on the team, and let me see if I can make it. If I can, then I can. If I can't, I can't. But I'm going to work my ass off to be able to be just as good as, if not better than. So I think that, that mindset kind of relates to what you're talking about, is we as a society and we as humans should really rely on our intellect and our abilities to get us what we need to do, or to go where we need to go. But that isn't to say that there are so many communities that are at such a disadvantage that I think that you might have a point. It's hard for me to, roll it around in my brain because I haven't thought about it a whole lot. But I think that we should be just really looking at the ability of people rather than making sure we have a certain percentage of a certain demographic.
Okay, yeah. Okay, with that, I agree with you 100%. Like, I'm a visible minority. I don't want a job because I'm brown. I don't want a promotion because I'm brown. I want it on
Right.
my merits. If I don't merit it, I don't want it. And like what I was suggesting here was, first of all, okay, we have to take a look at what's going on at the primary level, and that's got to be worked on. But if you start working on that now, the people who are graduating today, that doesn't help them, right? So I think the two things have to kind of work together, like the two solutions. But
Yeah.
the solution for the university should be one that's set up so that if you can fix some of the problems in primary and secondary education, you don't need that other solution for the universities, right? That should just be a stopgap measure until you can fix the feeder system that comes into it.
Right. And the problem is that the feeder system is broken in so many ways, which is why the initiative that I created even exists, because we're literally teachers are crowdsourcing to provide paper and pencils for their students. So there's obviously a lot that is wrong with the education system. There's also a lot that we get right. And so it really, I I wish it was a simple fix, but I completely agree with you that if we can start from the bottom up, that we would really curtail a lot of the issues that are at the university system now, and we'd be better preparing students for that. My first thought that really comes to mind, thinking of how to fix the feeder system, the primary and secondary, is to really take a look at high stakes testing. It completely robs teachers and students the ability to really think critically and get a fair education. We're teaching so much towards a test that they have to take. At least in Texas, it's hit really hard. Everything is about the STAR test. And so it's like, it just keeps like spiraling out of control. So we have to look at high stakes testing, which we put so much emphasis on the student, that mental health is raising in some of our students. There's anxiety out the wazoo. Teachers are feeling anxiety because they feel like their jobs depend on it. And then, you just literally, it's just like layer after layer after layer, that it's like, there's so many issues to fix that we do have to start at the bottom and rework it and think about, what is our real intention? Is it to show that our students can pass a test? Is that what shows true intellect, or that they learn something? Or is it their ability to think critically and, present an argument and to read fluently? What are we measuring here?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, thank you for bringing me back, because I did want to come back to that. I only went on that tangent about the university because I wanted to kind of focus on what you're talking about now. Like we have to fix what's going on at the start, because I mean, if you wait until someone's 18 years old, it's a little too late.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I have a couple of friends who are in she's in daycare and primary, like pre-K and stuff like that.
Right.
And then I have a couple of friends who do kindergarten to grade 3.
Okay.
And and they bring up a lot of things, and I mean, they're like, okay, sometimes and I think in Canada it might be a little different than the States. I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about either system, but they're tied up with a lot of bureaucracy. I mean, I think the government here has a lot more control on the system than they do in the States. I think in the States you have a little bit more freedom than they do here. I could be wrong, but yeah. So I mean, she complains about that, and there's a couple others that they'll complain about. We're given a certain curriculum and you're not allowed veering outside of it. And again, the
Right.
testing thing, like, okay, they're like, one of them's a science teacher, and she's upset about the fact that, okay, it's granted, it's not really science per se. I mean, it's I remember when I was a kid, like okay, look at leaves and stuff like that. It wasn't anything, you're not doing anything too heavy. They're really young, but still, see that it's all I'm teaching them is facts. I'm not teaching them how, like, why is the sky blue? Well, the sky is blue because of this, and that's it. There's no other further, discussion. There's
Right.
no, why did that happen? What would have happened if, like, if you look at the sky at a sunset, it's a different color than if you look at it at noon, right? Things like that.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So I mean, they're feeling frustrated because of a forced curriculum, and I mean, I don't know. Is it because of all these measures? Oh, if you look at this standard, the U.S. falls on this number in literacy, and this number in math. Like, are they
Right.
just so? I understand you need exams. I mean, you need final exams. You need some sort of examination. You need some way of measuring that.
Right.
But like a test every week, or a test, like I don't understand. Like, I've heard about that. And where did this come from? Or do you know? Or
Yeah, so I don't know exactly where it comes from, like from the very top, but I do know that like in Texas, so we have what's called the STAR test, and it's designed, they like in fourth grade, it depends on what grade you're in, how many you take, but in fourth grade, they have four or three, I'm sorry, they have a math, a reading, and a writing STAR test. And it's incredible, like, so, and we're given standards that we have to teach, and we're told, like I'm going into a multiplication unit, and I'm told, I have to be able to teach it the standard algorithm, I have to teach it through strip diagrams, I have to teach it through array model, and it's just like I had to teach it all of these ways, um, which is great, and it's a lot of people misunderstand why we teach it in so many ways, but it really does allow a student to realize that math is a way of thinking and it's not just computing. So I think that's great in that stance. But I completely agree with your friend who teaches science. The whole reason I actually got into education was because I wrote a research paper in college on science education in K through 5. And I realized that it's absolutely like just, it's like I don't know, it's like they put it on the back burner because of high stakes testing, because in Texas you don't get tested until fifth grade for science, so we spend all of our time in especially third and fourth grade, we take away science time, especially when it gets close to test time, and we start implementing more math and more reading and more writing, and we're not actually focusing on that critical thinking, or what do you wonder about, like you lose that time to ask your kids, like, what do you wonder about, like, just what's a question that you have, let's research it, let's figure it out. And I'm not saying it should all be free form. We, like you said, we have to have ways of measuring. We have to know that teachers are doing their jobs and kids are learning, but to what extent? And I think that we really are doing like a disservice to so many of our students by not have, like, I think that there should be a critical thinking class in elementary school from kindergarten up, like how to think, like actually physically teaching kids how to think, because I think we teach them so much of the facts and of the things that they have to regurgitate on a test that oftentimes we aren't able to explore deeper, and the students aren't able to explore deeper. And I think that's really an issue that we have.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, like, okay, I'll just, on my end, like, I was always a little curious kid. I mean, I used to drive my parents crazy, I think. I mean, I'll just give you an example. My dad, like, I was born in India, lived there till I was 6. And my dad used to, my dad grew up there. He used to hunt. And when we were living here, after we moved, he's telling us stories about when he's going out, and, he's telling one story about driving in the forest, and it's this really rocky road. And he said all the rocks were roughly about, this size, saying they're all about the same. And it was really bouncy. And I was maybe 7 or 8. And I was just like, well, if they're all the same size, wouldn't it be a smooth ride? And I mean, he's looking at me like, come on, kid. I'm just trying to tell you a story. Like, relax. But okay, I saw the original Cosmos when it came out. I was 11 years old, I think, or between 10 and 11. And then, I mean, the way Sagan talked about it, I could understand it at 10, or, like I said, I was almost 11. I could understand it then. And he didn't give you facts. He gave you some, but he talked more about curiosity. And that, for me, that was a spark. And right. I fell in love with science. I unfortunately got disillusioned in university, but I mean, there's a couple of books I've gotten for my niece and nephew, like the Annika Harris book, I Wonder.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I mean, that's excellent. For my nephew, I got him as well. I was really lucky because I happened to be at a conference where Richard Dawkins was, and I bought a copy of the Magic of Reality, and I got Professor Dawkins to sign it for my nephew, so he's got that. Like, I don't know why those kind of books aren't part of the curriculum for science for little kids.
Yeah. Well, here in the States, a lot of what we battle is it's so political. And so for science education in particular, I mean, we still have legislation in different states that will fight evolution being taught in high school. So, I mean, like, it's almost unheard of to bring in books, that focus on that. at a younger level because we're barely, I mean, some districts are really good about it and some states are really good about it. Obviously the more progressive ones usually. But yeah, I mean, I still see stuff in the news about, evolution being questioned and should we teach evolution and creationism or whatever it is. And so it's like, yeah, I actually have Annika Harris's I Wonder book, and I think it's great because it is just about pondering. And I actually have some children's books on Sagan too. He's my absolute favorite. The Demon Haunted World is in my top 5 books I've ever read in my entire life. So yeah, I mean, I wish that there was a way, and in private schools and charter schools, obviously they have way more leeway than complete public schools. So I don't know, that's just another issue that we really have to talk about and take seriously. And that's why I entered education. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to change it. I'm going to do something. And, and I feel like I did for the kids that I had when I taught science, and now I'm not teaching it, not for my own choice, but I just am in a different role this year. So I'm in complete agreement with you. I wish that, that there was more time to, like, logic puzzles. And I teach gifted and talented, and we are literally, our unit this 6 weeks is critical thinking. And it's my favorite part of my day because it's literally just wondering, and it's teaching, 8 to 10-year-olds, what's the difference between a belief and a claim? What is evidence? What's a conclusion? And they're understanding, and they're able to actually put together their own thoughts about it. And then they can take that with them and the ability to think critically to all their classrooms and excel, I think, better.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, if you have that critical thinking, like, again, the way Sagan laid it out to me, that's kind of, and that's kind of how I've tried to follow through it. I fail miserably sometimes, but we're all human. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's, like, kind of just sticking with this. It's just because this is one of my big things, right? I don't, I see it my nephew, really, really bright kid. And I'm not just saying this because of his uncle, but he started reading The Lord of the Rings when he was 10.
Wow.
And he could, in certain aspects, he's not taught that critical thinking. Like, I've seen him try to navigate, like, spatially. Like, okay, he's got to get somewhere, and there's a stack of pallets with stacks of bottles of, like, Pepsi and Coke and stuff on them, and he's got to get to the other side, and he's like wanting to walk right through them, and I'm just looking at him like, what are you thinking? And like I said, this kid is smart. He's really intelligent. He speaks well. And granted, like I said, I'm a bit biased. It is my nephew, but you should be able to figure out that you can walk around them, not go straight through them.
Right.
Something like that shocks me.
Right, where it's so, like, point A to point B and you're done, and there's no just, like, brewing of an idea inside your mind.
Yeah, okay, there's something I wanted to ask just because I don't know, and it's something that I work in IT, so I used to, I'm in Montreal now, but I was up in Northern Canada setting up, I was managing internet services for remote Inuit communities, and then before that, I used to set up communication systems for the military. So I look at, a friend of mine had put it to me this way. They keep talking about how this, generation now, especially, kids today, they're very, very tech savvy. And the way he explained it to me, the way he said, okay, look at it this way, they're tech literate. They're tech fluent, but they're not tech literate. Like, I was born in India, I can speak Urdu, I can't read it and write it. I'm fluent speaking it, but I'm not literate. He goes, we start have to giving them more tech literacy, like, know what's going on in the background. So if you start using Google and you do a search, depending on what you select, it'll start giving you what it thinks you want instead of what you need, right? Like I remember learning the Dewey Decimal System, like going to the card catalog in the library. How do you do research? How do you do that? But now with Google, they must have so much information, and teaching them to parse that must be such a nightmare.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I know that I can't speak for all of education in the U.S., obviously, but from just what I've seen, there's been a lot of push for STEM in the classrooms, which is really great, but it's only solving part of the problem, I think. And I think that brings up a really good point that these kids know how to use it, they know how to navigate it, but do they understand the background, what's actually happening? I actually do a coding unit with my gifted kiddos, which is really cool. We use some Lego education. They're called We Do's, and they actually build. They go through an app, and they actually build like a creature or a rover or something. And then there's a Bluetooth mechanism where the iPad connects, and they can actually code it to like move around the table or spin in a circle, whatever it's doing. And so and it's all based on like solving a problem, right? So, one is like going to Mars, and so they can create and code this rover to be able to figure out if life could survive there. And so, I know that there are pushes, but it's all extracurricular, and there's not a lot of time with high stakes testing to bring in these what I think most would say you're like extracurricular, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, even that too, like, okay, I don't know, again, I have friends who have kids and stuff, and, hearing about them, there seems to be, okay, you've got extracurricular as in, okay, you've got sports teams and stuff like that, so there's organized stuff for kids, so they, and I mean, like that, I have an issue with all the organized fun for kids, but there doesn't seem to be like the AV clubs or science clubs or
yeah. So I know that a lot of that comes in, at least where I've seen or where I went to school here in Texas. A lot of those clubs start coming in like middle and high school. Elementary schools don't usually have as many clubs, and there's really not too many classes that they could take, or even the space in their schedule to take them. We do have what we call UIL, which is academic like competitions basically. And so they study for a month or two, and they can compete in different areas, and they have to try out and make a team and all of that. So, I mean, there are some really good initiatives, and there's some good thinking, but then there's obviously, some issues we have to sort out. And I think you're right, starting from the ground up and, solving, it's so layered, right? So like, parents and, how, or like poverty level, like we have to go and see like what area or what demographic our schools are in, and where our kids coming from, and how do we best meet their needs, and then how do we build them to be successful, and that goes across all neighborhoods.
Yeah, okay, I wanted to actually talk about this. Like, what, I don't know if you know or if you've got any idea, like, I mean, you've talked about the testing. What metric would they use to say, okay, this is the standard that kids need to be at when they finish, okay, when they're getting out of grade 3, they should be at this level, and then getting out of grade 6, they should be at this level, like at least. But because it seems to me like those metrics are kind of all over the place, and I realize state to state your laws change and your regulations change. Same thing here in Canada, province to province. But because if those metrics aren't right, and if you're not setting a correct metric for that, then you're not giving everyone the equal opportunity that they need. And I mean, there's always going to be some disparity. There's always going to be some more affluent neighborhoods that their parents will spend more money on their kids, or private schools, or I'm not quite sure what charter schools are, but that kind of stuff. But but at least there should be a baseline of, okay, it needs to be at least here, so that way everyone has an equal as equal an opportunity as possible.
Yeah, so Texas, and I only really know Texas, and most states do this, but they give out a set of standards for each grade level, each subject. So in 4th grade, I have however many standards, like 30 things that I have to teach over the course of 4th grade. They give me a pacing guide, and the students have to master a certain amount of that on their test in May. So they'll take like what I was saying is called our STAR test, and that's our high stakes test. And actually, Texas is unique, where, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this. Everyone has told me this, but I could be wrong. But Texas is unique that we don't actually get the passing standard, like the passing rate, So like a percentage across the entire state until after all of the tests have been scored. So they actually they score them all and then figure out where the baseline is, and then they set the pass rate. So we don't actually know. We kind of go in. We have our standards. We know what we're supposed to teach, but we kind of go in blindly as teachers, even to knowing exactly what our students have to do, what they need to pass, or anything like that. So it really is. It's a rough system here in Texas, and it's not set up best for real success, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, maybe I didn't explain because I understand the testing, but what I'm trying to figure out is okay, and I think here you can't have a cookie cutter approach because it's never going to work. But okay, this neighborhood, like this school is not deficient in the marks the kids are getting, or not deficient in how well but okay, this school needs a better basketball court. This school needs
Right.
this like there's got to be a way to address because different neighborhoods and different communities across the United States, and same thing in Canada. They're so large and they're so a farming community in the Midwest is going to have different issues than a community in
Exactly.
urban in downtown Manhattan, right?
Right. Right.
So I mean, like, there's got to be like some sort of okay, all schools should have all these different things to this level, like this level of sporting equipment, this level of science equipment, this level of but each community is going to have a different issue to have that to bear. Like,
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. And I know that there are some initiatives, like in the US, we have what we call Title I schools, and those are schools that are more economically disadvantaged. If you have a certain percent, then you receive extra funding from the state. And so there are some things like that, but for the most part, like when it comes to testing, it's very cookie cutter. And it's very like, you have to meet this, and you get compared to schools your size and in your surrounding area, I believe. But that's more of like an administrative question. We aren't privy to a lot of that information as teachers, but from what I know, like they set, yeah, I mean, I agree with you that we should all work together to give an equal playing field for everyone to have equal opportunity to success. But I don't know enough to really talk on it past the testing.
yeah, and like I said, I mean, you're gonna have to realize, and you can't begrudge parents who have the means who say, okay, you know what, my kid goes to this school, I've got money, I want to make sure that my kid has the best education, I'm going to spend some money on that school. If everything else is equal, and then some parents want to spend some extra money, you shouldn't begrudge them. I mean,
Oh yeah, I agree.
you can envy it because
Right.
but but at the same point too, I think, like, let's say there are parents who can afford to do stuff like that, and if the government say, okay, you know what, if you spend 5% or 10%, or a percentage of whatever you're donating to your kid's school or your schools in your community, if you donate to communities that are in more need, you'll get instead of you can double the amount that you claim off your taxes or whatever. Give them a incentive to maybe give some money in the other direction as well. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know, the financial, like how to solve it, but yeah, I'm in agreement. Like, I mean, in theory, it sounds great. I just don't know, like, whose responsibility is it for your own kid, So it's like, are we? I don't know.
Oh, okay, no, like I said, I'm here. I'm just kind of like, my mind kind of wandered there, and I was just thinking about it.
For sure.
And I'm, it was just a thought, but I just a question on, because especially for younger kids, I recently spoke with Lenore Skenazy. She does Let Grow. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so she started off with a blog called Free Range Kids, and then now she's got an organization called letgrow.org, and basically she started the blog because I can't remember if it was her son or her daughter, was about 11 years old, and they took the subway in Manhattan, in like Brooklyn or something like that, or Queens. And she wrote about the New York Times, and she got a lot of vitriol, like, how dare you let your child alone on the subway at like 11 years old or something like that. And I mean, I used to take the subway in Montreal when I was 7 by myself. I mean, I was a little young maybe, but And then so she started this thing. It's to give kids independence. So they have basically they schools can reach out to them and they give them little kits for projects to give to kids. And the projects are simple things like for younger kids it could be okay, make toast in the morning. You know, on Saturday morning when your parents are making breakfast, you make the toast and you butter it, right? So it gives a
Yeah.
kid a sense of independence. Or it's like, okay, go to the store, buy a quart of milk, and come back home and get some change. And you know, obviously they're not going to send a 6-year-old to the store by themselves, but you know, like something like that, go to the corner store, you know, 10, 11 years old, go do something like that. So it's little projects to kids get kids and parents used to seeing kids doing stuff kind of on their own. So
Yeah.
you'll have like, you know, one school, so every kid in that neighborhood has that assignment for that week. So all the parents know about it. No one's really freaking out. You know, no one's like, oh, go call Child Protective Services because someone's letting their kid walk down the street by themselves or something like that.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great idea. I really liked what she was doing.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I think it's great, you know. And I really like, well, like I really like the theory and kind of the framework around like what they call unschooling, where it's like you kind of take like a non typical approach, I guess, if you will, and you literally like go, it's kind of like Montessori. I don't know if you know what that is, but like you base a lot of it on what the kid is interested in, and then you formulate your lessons around that, and you let them explore. And there's not like set grades, like 9-year-olds have to be in this grade, 10-year-olds have to be in that. It's not like that. They can it's based on like their ability, and so that's really cool too. And it's all and it's kind of led by that independence foundation. So I think that's really interesting what she's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I can send you a link later if you want to check it out. And, you know, because they are focused on schools, and you know they'll give the teachers all the kits and everything. I mean, obviously there's no supplies really, but you know they'll give them all the information, everything they need, and they'll work with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Send it to me and I'll definitely check it out. I mean, it sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like again, this is for me. It's okay. I don't have kids. You know, I have a niece and a nephew. I'm doing this, and I have no problem admitting this. I'm doing this for purely selfish reasons because the kids are going to be the ones who are making the policies when I'm collecting my pension. So I want to make sure they're
Right.
educated so I can look after myself when I
Right.
have money. You know, but I mean, honestly, I think we do need to look at it in some ways that way. You know, like, oh, why should we? I don't have kids. Why should I spend money on school taxes? You know, why should I spend money on that? It's like, well, even if you don't have kids, they're the ones who are going to write the laws when you're older.
Exactly. And they're the ones that are, they're going to be your doctors or taking care of your pets,
Yeah.
as a vet or, yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you. I think that we have to look and then we have to, yeah. So, I mean, I'm in complete agreement with you. I think that we have to, set our kids up for, and I don't have kids either personally, but we have to set up our kids to be the next politician, be the next president, be the next nurse, be the next doctor, be the next, fast food worker. Like some of them are going to go and they're going to work in fast food, and that's okay. We just have to set them up for success in whatever way that we can. And so I completely agree with you that like we have to do it for a way looking out towards the future. It's kind of that same mindset you were saying, people saying that they shouldn't pay school taxes because they don't have kids. And it's like, okay, but then so why should we spend taxes on like NASA? It's like, what are they doing to directly influence my life? And you're like, you wouldn't be on a computer or on a telephone right now. Like you wouldn't have the internet, like, like all of these things. And so I think that there's oftentimes it's really hard to get like the messaging across to say like, this is how this really impacts you and you may not realize it.
Okay, I mean maybe it's like what where you're teaching, it's a little bit younger than and it might not be an issue as much, but are they focused too much on get out and go to university, and they're not talking about? I mean, I like woodworking. I'm not good at it by any means, but I like tinkering around, and I'll do little very very small things, nothing major.
Sure, sure.
But like saying, okay, this is an option. Like if you want to go into carpentry or you want to go into cabinet making, those are. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going into. I don't know why there's such an aversion, or why people think it's lesser to go into a manual trade. Like
Yeah, so I agree with you. Where I'm at is actually different because I'm around, I live near a bunch of refineries. And so a huge portion of the graduates around here will go into the oil field. And that's kind of expected almost. So my area might be a little different. There doesn't seem to be near as much of a push, but I have seen that like in the media and everywhere that there's so many schools pushing for university and pushing for university. But from where I'm at, we're kind of, we're not very affluent, but we do have like a lot of the oil industry here, a lot of refineries. And so it's expected for a lot of students to take some classes in high school on carpentry or process operating or whatever it is, and then go to a little trade school and then get into the field and start working. I agree with you that we should allow, it's kind of like what we were saying earlier, like, don't hire me just because I'm a girl, hire me because I'm good at my job. Like, follow your passion, whatever that is. Like, it doesn't have to be business or law or education. It can be like like carpentry. It can be woodworking. It can be, painting houses. It can be the oil field. It can be whatever it is. Just, I think the message that I love to get across is just do what you're passionate about and do what actually like gets you up in the morning, because then you're going to actually put more effort into it and you're going to live a happier life. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, but also like I see this attitude. Okay, I went to university. I went to university for political science and then public administration. Then I ended up working in IT. So I didn't use my university skills.
Yeah.
But you get all these people. It's like, oh, he's a mechanic. He's a grease monkey. It's like, okay, yeah, fine. You went to university. You've got what, and it's not. I'm not trying to like. I got political science, so I'm in the humanities as well. But you've got something in humanities. He's a mechanic. Like, he can take apart an engine, he can fix it, he can,
Right.
he knows how it works. There is some logic to there is, you can't be a moron and be a mechanic, right?
Right. Well, it reminds me of like Bill Nye, who always says everyone knows something that you don't. So it's like I actually, when I was a kid, I used to help take apart cars with my dad. So like at one point, I thought I would be a mechanic. Like, I was like, this is really cool. Like, I like it. My hands are in it. I'm doing something. But yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement with you.
No, I mean, like, I find this attitude, and it bugs me because, yeah, you went to university, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to take anything away from going to university.
Right.
I think any kind of education is valuable, take
Right.
it, but maybe, our education system, and when I'm starting to, I kind of, sometimes I feel bad when I say things like, well, maybe our education system should do this, because it sounds like I'm saying, well, teachers aren't doing a good job or whatever. And I'm not trying to insinuate that at all. Maybe the whole system should try to value like any kind of education or something.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that it really is dependent on location. Like I said, here it is valued if you go to a trade school, like that's not looked down upon. But I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I've seen it in the media as well. And the problem that really comes is whenever our universities are becoming really skewed. That's obviously in the media a lot lately, or if you're looking in the right places, I guess. And so it's like, where do you go? You just have to be very careful on exactly what you're doing and what you're studying and making sure that it's reputable.
Listen, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you very much. I want to give you the last word. If there's stuff you want to talk about, if there's stuff coming up, give people any kind of coordinates where if they want to, the hashtags they can check out, websites they can go to, anything like that.
Sure.
Please.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed the conversation. So to find us, you can literally search the hashtag clear the list on social media and you'll find it. Supportateach.com is my website, and there's a donate button there. It'll take you to one of our affiliate sites where you can donate if you'd like to, or you can donate straight to someone's list through that hashtag. And it really is an awesome community. So if you're a teacher, like, hop in. There is a hashtag clear the list Canada. So I know there's been some traction there. Nothing like the US, but all it takes is for some teachers to start inviting, and that could blow up too. So search that as well. And I think we just have to continue the conversation. Like, I started the movement and I'm involved in the movement, and I'm not putting I'm not laying to rest the issue that I'm trying to put my voice into places that are more effective, with actual policymakers and legislators to actually bring change to this issue of schools being underfunded, or at least teachers, being underfunded and buying the supplies they need for their students. So, yeah, thank you.
No, well, thank you very much for coming on. And I listen. If there's any point there you have something going on, and let me know. I will put it out on my social media. It's not that I have a huge impact, and you have an open invitation to come back here if you want to talk about something. If something's going on, feel free. And thank you again, and thank you everyone for listening.